Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So I really wanted to talk about Jeffrey Dean Morgan's comments regarding reuniting with Andrew Lincoln, Norman Reedus, and all the cast members. There's been a lot of talk about this because Comic-Con just happened, and honestly, I'm seeing a lot of different interviews where certain cast members are asked about this. Yesterday, I did a video actually talking about what Melissa McBride said and how I thought that could really hint at reuniting Rick and Negan maybe on Dead City, right? Because maybe when all the characters reunite, it's not the first time that all of them are seeing Rick for the first time. Maybe for Rick and Daryl that makes sense, but maybe for the other characters, they reunite in some other way, right? And so last night I actually saw this from Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He was asked during an interview with comicbook.com by Brandon Davis about, do you ever think about all the characters getting back together, this and that? And his response was very, very interesting. And I do want to talk about this because I feel like there's a lot more pressure on Gimple to actually make this happen now. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Now, like I was saying, Jeffrey Dean Morgan was asked during a comicbook.com interview at Comic-Con about everyone reuniting. When was it going to happen, this and that. And the impression that I got from that interview is that they all want to do it, because he was saying something like, they all text each other, they all talk about it. And so it seems like they all really want to do it. And I really do wonder, when this idea first started to happen, because I look at it a couple of years ago, and the whole idea of everybody reuniting, I don't know if that was really a thing ever, because if you think about it, before they announced that The Walking Dead was ending, it was just that The Walking Dead was sort of ending. Yes, they were going to do the spin-offs, but maybe they would just all sort of do spin-offs and, we'll see where that goes. I think they all sort of wondered if they would ever have scenes again with Andrew Lincoln, right? Reuniting with Rick and all of that. Because I remember Jeffrey Dean Morgan talking about that a long time ago, how cool that would be, this and that. And, obviously it's been a very long time. I think we all really want to see that. And so I think that at this point here, because of how well the spin-offs are doing, all the characters being, separated and the story being as amazing as it is, I think that it makes so much sense to do this Endgame sort of spin-off. And when he was asked about that, and just the cast in general being asked about it, it seems like they're all really wanting to do this. They all want everyone to come back together and reunite for this one last final story. Obviously, I think doing that next year, having the Endgame spin-off happen in 2025 or in 2026 is way too soon, because you want to build up the story. And that's my whole thing with The Ones Who Live. The reason why for me the ending doesn't work as well, as much as I have accepted certain ideas as just okay, well, that's just how the CRM arc ended, I'll have to get over that, that's fine. The only thing is that you really have to build up that story well to make that ending so amazing, right? And so I think that right now, with where the story is at, it's just not built up enough. There's not a lot of connection between, the CRM and also Madame Janae's group, right? You need to make some more connections there. You need to come up with a better villain as well. Madame Janae, I think, could be that, but I don't know if that's the direction they're going in with her character, because who knows where they go for season 3 and 4. There's probably going to be a bigger villain there and all that, and I have no idea where they're going there, right? We all think Madame Janae's behind all the research with the scientists and all that. There might be someone else there, maybe in Spain, that, is causing a lot more of this. We have no idea what Gimple has planned, but we know that the story is supposed to get really crazy for season 2. And so that's kind of my point, is I think they need to build a little bit more here, so a couple of more years. And that's why I really did say, I think in a couple of videos ago, I said, 2028. That seems to be the year that it just makes so much sense for Rick Grimes to actually come back. Maybe next year at Comic-Con in 2025, we get an update from Gimple about something related to Rick and Michonne, and then maybe it takes 3 years for it to come out or something like that, right? Because I'm just thinking about it in terms of Dead City and Daryl Dixon, right? If you do 5 seasons of each show, season 3 of Daryl Dixon's coming out in 2025. I guess 26 would be season 4. 27 would be season 5. So 28 makes some sense. Although Dead City, their season 5 would be coming out in 2028. But I guess you could still kind of line it up. I just feel like it makes some sense, around there, that you would do something like that with the story. And then before that, you would just get all these crossovers and all that, right? But what's so funny about this is that you think Gimple feels all the pressure from us, all of us really want to see these reunions and everything. He also now has the cast bugging him as well, because that's actually what he said. Jeffrey Dean Morgan just said that he was bugging Gimple about that the other day. He was asking him about, reuniting with the other characters, when is this happening, or what's going on and all that, right? And so it seems like everybody wants to do it. It seems like the cast actually wants to reunite. They really want to make this story happen here. And so I feel like at this point here, the story and The Walking Dead has really gotten to a point where I think the fans and some of the cast know what's best for everything. And I think Gimple can do whatever story he likes in whatever manner he wants and all of that. But I think the direction of everyone reuniting and this end game is something that everyone wants. And I mean everyone. Like, I don't really think there's a lot of people who don't want to see them reunite. Like, maybe there's a couple of people, but like, I think everybody wants to see this happen. And I think if Gimple just decided that he didn't want to do that, and, you know, I think it would just upset everybody. Because again, he has to craft all of this, you know, he has to do all of that. But it's also not like Gimple is Robert Kirkman in that sense, right? Like, Robert Kirkman wrote everything and did all of that. Gimple, I guess, is doing some aspect to that, but he also like world builds and he runs all of the shows and he's planning all of that out. So, you know, I just think that at this point, it makes a lot of sense that it's, you know, for The Walking Dead, you really have to look at it as like, you know, at this point, it really is about, you know, what do the fans want, right? Like, what direction should we go in here? And I think that this obviously has to be something that I think that they do at some point here. And what's really interesting about it is in terms of the timelines. And I talked about this the other day, but I don't know if I mentioned this, but Dead City is going to be doing a time jump of 6 months going into season 2. And so to me, them going 6 months into season 2, I mean, it's actually kind of insane because the show overall is like a couple of years after like The Ones Who Live and like Daryl Dixon, right? So like that show's really far into the future. But what I will say is that I actually think what they're doing is smart, because I think it has to do with Herschel's actor getting a lot older, because you don't want a situation where the actor keeps getting older and older, and then all of a sudden he's still however old he is on the show, right? Like, the Carl situation was just so frustrating, and that's really where I started to give up and like not care at all about any of the timeline stuff, because we're all expected to believe that he aged literally 2 years from season 1 to season 8, right? Like, that's kind of insane to me. And so when I see a lot of people complaining about the time jumps and all of that, I really, like, personally, for me, I think it's good what they're doing, because I think it will slow down, you know, as soon as the actor gets older, where he doesn't age so much within like a year or two. Like, I think that's when the time jumps will slow down quite a bit, because then you can just have the character being in like his early 20s or something like that, right? I think at that point, then you just kind of keep the timeline just where it is. The other shows will catch up. Like, that's the thing. The other shows definitely will catch up in the timeline. I can definitely see them doing that actually probably in like season 3 because of Laurent, unless Laurent actually does like die at some point in season 2. We'll have to wait and see, but I can definitely see them doing that for season 3, some sort of time jump of like 6 months or like a year or something. And this is why I don't think rebooting The Walking Dead makes a lot of sense. It's just because like there's a lot of story left to tell. There's a lot of places that they're going right now in terms of just like, again, reuniting everybody, and you're exploring all these different countries and all of that. And you're taking the story to different places. You're also making the story a lot better. You're taking it into different directions and all of that. And you have a cast that I think is still really well loved by everyone. Like, I feel like whenever you do a reboot, it's because it's gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, you know what? The cast was really amazing, but they could never come back and play their role anymore. And so, yeah, I'm okay with a reboot, right? Like, I think that's when the idea of a reboot makes a lot of sense. But I think at this point, like, it just makes no sense at all. Like, that's never ever going to happen right now, because Norman Reedus plays Daryl. Like, there's no one else that can play Daryl. He can play Daryl for the next 20 years easily, right? And Jeffrey Dean Morgan, he can play Negan for the next 20 years. Andrew Lincoln, and so forth, right? Like, the characters would just get older, obviously, but that's sort of where the story is at. That's sort of the awesome thing about The Walking Dead, is the characters are getting older, and then you have this, like, next generation coming in as well, right? Like, that's why, to me, the idea of rebooting The Walking Dead just makes no sense. Ignoring all of that as well, people are so excited to see everyone back together again. And I was really thinking about that the other day. Like, imagine what it would be like to actually have everyone back together again. Because I always thought that whenever we got everyone reuniting, that it would be a final scene. Sort of like how Rick and Michonne reunited with Judith and RJ, right? It was just like this very fast reunion with his family. And I just kind of figured that it would be something very similar to that. And when you look at how they did it, you know, in terms of Rick and Michonne reuniting, that was really awesome, because you had literally all season with them together, right? And it was so cool to actually see that. Yes, it should have been way more episodes, definitely like 10 episodes at least, but at least you got to spend time with them and hang out with the characters, right? Like, that was so fun to see. And so I think getting a story like that where everyone reunites in the first episode and you get like 10 episodes of everyone together, or 8 or 10 episodes or whatever it's going to be, that's just going to be really awesome. Like, that's what I'm really excited for, is to see those moments, because obviously everyone reuniting and everyone talking, like, that's going to be really cool. But as soon as the story goes along and then you get a scene where Rick and Daryl are just like talking about whatever, like it's those moments that fans love so much, and that you always go back and you just like rewatch those certain little moments, right? Because those moments build the story. Whenever a certain big event happens, you always go back to like a moment like that where they were just like talking in a room and you're like, oh wow, that moment meant this and that. Like that's what's always been sort of special to me about The Walking Dead. Is just like, it's just so set in reality that, or at least it feels like it. Like it feels so grounded that you love all of those moments. You love all the moments of them literally, like they could just be sitting there watching TV and like, I'll still watch that. Like somehow it's like character development for the characters. Cause I don't know, it feels like it is with these characters. Like you've just been watching them for so long that you know these characters so well, right? So anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post your thoughts down below on what Jeffrey Dean Morgan had to say, and also your thoughts on Gimple planning all this out now, because I do feel like Gimple has a lot of pressure on him right now to actually make this happen. So yeah, post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.